Before we jump into today's episode, I want to invite you to Rhythm Conference. Rhythm Conference is February 10th and 11th in Fargo, North Dakota at Northview Church, and it is going to be an awesome time. We're going to have guest speakers including Keith and Kristen Peterson, Josiah and Micah Keneally, Jordan Smucker, and NDSU's own Grant and Amy Olson. This is going to be a time for us to make new friends, to worship together, but also to find our rhythm. What does it look like to follow Jesus in this ambiguous, sometimes confusing season of life? It's for anybody in your early 20s to early 30s. Be a friend, tell a friend, visit rhythmconf.com to find more information and to register today. The conference itself is only $40. It's going to include breakout sessions, after parties, 3 main sessions. It's going to be awesome. So visit rhythmconf.com, rhythmconf.com. We'll see you there on February 10th and 11th. Welcome to the Going Somewhere podcast, a podcast for anyone who finds themselves in the ambiguous adventure of young adulthood, a season marked by uncertainty, change, love, heartbreak, and a whole lot of big decisions. Sit down with me for some real and raw conversations with some incredible people as we dig into what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in this beautiful yet complicated season of life. If this podcast helps you in any way, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with friends. Be sure to join the conversation on Instagram by following goingsomewhere.podcast. We're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. Today I'm joined by one of my best friends, Josh Skjoldal.
Yes. I'm just doing this because you called me one of your best friends.
Is that the only reason?
And I'm excited to be here.
Oh, okay, good. No, you are. You're somebody who, our story goes way back. I was in high school, and the first thing I really remember, I think I met you at like youth convention, but was when you came, you took me to Starbucks when I was a senior. I was in a relationship that just was kind of, it wasn't awful. It was kind of pointless though. And you're like, why are you doing it? And you just like have always called me higher. And so you've just been somebody who's impacted my life a lot, but we also have a lot of fun together, don't we?
Yes. Hey, can we just talk about friendship for a second?
Yes.
Because I feel like it's important to know that friendship looks different in different seasons.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of people put pressure on friendship to be like, well, we don't talk anymore. So we must not be friends. No, that's pretty much all I know. But it's
I think every segment of this podcast episode needs to be kicked off by a song.
I can totally turn anything into a song.
All right.
And now the bad thing is my kids are catching on to that. So they turn things into songs.
Is that a good thing or kind of annoying?
For me, it's great. For my wife, she's like, they put me in a torture house.
Yes.
Where everybody's singing all the time.
Yes. Back to friendship.
Yes, because I think one of the things about being a young adult and even getting older is that friendships change. There's people that you do friendship with because you're in proximity to each other, but if you weren't in proximity, you might not do friendship.
Right.
And there's other people that you're not in proximity anymore. Maybe you don't even talk that often, but the minute you pick up the phone, you go right back.
Yes.
To where you were. And so I love that, and I love that life comes in seasons. And embracing that.
Well, what's funny, about our friendship is that we had 1 or 2 years total where we were actually in the same city.
Yeah, and then you left.
No,
Did you
left.
leave? I left.
I didn't leave.
It was me.
Yeah, you left. So you went to Dickinson, and then you were in Bismarck, which is my hometown, and so I would see you a lot, and we would just stay connected. But I think it was just through the similarities in our path that I think just there's been like a tractor beam. Is that a Dumb and Dumber reference? But there's just been a pull. And, before we, we'll talk about your wife and your family because that's really important too and what you do. But I wanted to see how many similarities we could come up with.
Are we going to go back and forth?
Yeah, we could go back and forth.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you start.
Vikings.
Okay.
Is that true?
Well, we're
Carson Wentz bandwagoners, but historically.
For sure. And that's another similarity. One would be...
I'll give you another one.
We're both slender. We can make skinny jeans look like boot cuts.
Yes. I was going to say BMI. Body mass index.
That's just one. Just BMI. It's simple. Yeah, we're within range. Okay.
Makes less sense. Our majors in college.
Yeah. PR and advertising.
At the same college.
University. went into PR and advertising because of you, because I had a call to ministry in my life. I was in sports management. I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. And you're like, communications, PR and advertising. It's basically ministry in a secular environment.
I was like, I didn't know what to do either. Here's what I did.
Yeah.
And it
so,
worked.
okay. So that's one. We definitely married very funny, engaging,
True.
amazing people who make life a lot more fun.
Yep.
And keep us on our toes. And I'm just going to jump on one more. We also have 3 kids.
Ah, gosh, you keep stealing them right out of my mouth. We also have 3 kids. We're both credentialed pastors.
Yes, we are. For several years, same journey for that as well. Oh man, I'm trying to think.
Evangel,
the connection. I interned here. You interned here at Northview First Assembly. I think we could go on and on. Just communication. Writing, we both have a heart for writing.
Yep.
For putting our thoughts on paper. And
we both have a podcast.
Shout
out Highly Unlikely with Josh and Janae.
Yes, go listen to Highly Unlikely with Josh and Janae.
Shameless plug.
Hey, there's no shame here.
Good.
There's no shame. No, but I think, yes, we could go on and on just out of, I think God ordained our friendship in a really cool way. And I think there's been several times where even the podcast, when I called you and I was like, hey, I'm kind of taking a leap. I don't really have everything planned out. We're going to be recording on my iPhone. The backdrop's going to get taken for launch Sunday.
I prefer this anyways. Don't you guys like the new backdrop?
Like or comment for the backdrop. But, when I called you, you're like, crazy. I just recorded the first one of our new podcast. And so just when I've talked about things that I'm writing or things that, entrepreneurial or just ideas that I've had that maybe have been, stopped in past seasons, you've kind of lit the fire under me and you're like, me too. So it's been fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think even, transitions and like ending up in the church and like, even this last transition, for you going on staff in Northview and stuff. And it's fun. That's part of friendship too, is just getting to encourage each other in a new season. And
is that the F
cheer
in
for
the
people.
acronym friendship?
What?
Fun.
Yes. Sure. I was like, I don't know.
You're a pastor, don't you? We have acronyms for everything.
Yes, we can turn anything into a 3 to 8 point message.
A rhyme or an acronym.
Right.
But, all right. So tell us a little bit about your family, where you're at, what you're doing.
So we live in Bismarck, North Dakota, and married to my wife, Janae, who's a physical therapist by trade, went to UND. I went to NDSU. And Janae is now, we co-lead pastor our church, Evangel, and we have 3 kids. Avery. I was going to make a joke and I backed off, but Avery,
you weren't free. I'll take you. You know your kids' names.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Avery, Lily, and Berkeley, and they're 6'4". Avery's a boy. I know it's a girl name now. 6'4" and 1.
Avery Johnson, the Spurs point guard.
Thank you.
Back
Okay,
in the
but
day.
now all the little Averys are girls.
Okay,
So
he's having that.
and you know when we realized that?
When?
In the NICU, when all the nurses kept saying she. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's a little blue tag here that says it's a boy.
See, that's why you got to just name your kid Summit.
Yeah, right.
Just rock.
No brain.
Peak of a mountain.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. Life is super fast right now. We don't like to say it's busy, but it is full. That's for sure.
Yes.
And, but it's great. And I was telling somebody else today, I love the stage that my youngest daughter is in, like the 18 to 20 months, because they're like social and they're learning words and everything they do, they're super proud of.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she's our last one. So I'm like grieving, actually like the infancy stage of being a parent and moving on to older and what I thought would be easier, but now they argue with you, know.
Yeah.
So it's getting more difficult, and they lie to you. It's hard to not be offended.
I know that could be a whole conversation in itself. It's just like we're diving into some of that with Kinsley of just like the main one. It's classic, but it's her grabbing a sucker and me being like, whoa, it's 8 a.m. and she's like, Mom told me I could have it, and Mom's like feeding the baby. totally another room. And I'm like, should I go ask your mom? No, no, no.
Don't ask.
All right, let's talk about lying. You know, so
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
it's a journey. And I want to get into it a little bit here, not right now, but just, you know, parenting through some of the transitions that you guys have had and the leadership weight. And so just kind of want to share just a glimpse of your guys' story and your journey of, you know, you interned here, all that, but then you went to Evangel's young adults pastor. And so just kind of take us from that point. You were a single young adults pastor.
Yeah.
And what did God do?
Yeah, that was 2014. So I actually was at another church before that doing youth ministry, and then got the opportunity to come to Bismarck and to do young adults. And so that was like 2012, I think, end of 2011, and made that transition. And God did awesome things, had a young adult ministry that was booming, super fun just to be with like college age young professionals. We all did life together all the time. You know, we had a house that we hung out at all the time.
And I would come and hang out and stay overnight.
Yep. And lots of honorary roommates that would come. And I actually that's what I love the most about college and young adult years, was just really getting to do life together. You know, we'd play like cards way late into the night. We would stay up and pray together, just enjoy each other's company so much, you know. And family changes that, you know. Sometimes we'll jokingly, like, I'll look at one of my friends from that season and I'm like, remember the good old days, you know?
Oh yeah.
Before there was like responsibility as much.
Yeah.
And man, I reflect back on that season. Maybe that's advice I would give anybody who's a young adult, is like, enjoy just being fully immersed in community. Like, find it and hold on to it, because it's such a short season of life and it's so beautiful.
For sure. I think when you do that, when you enjoy that season, like, you also like train your muscles to enjoy every season, you know, because I think people that get caught up are people that do only look back and say, I want that, instead of saying, all right, it's going to look different, but what do I need now? And how do I live now? But yeah, that's so good.
Well, and I think that's why I mentioned to you about like a quarter life crisis, because I feel like a lot of people get into an age where they are either starting a family or they're starting a career. And it's like childhood and teenagers have definitely ended for you. I know you're 24 or 25 and you're holding on to it, but a lot of people go through like a loss of identity because life isn't as social as it used to be. They have responsibilities that have stripped some of that away. And I see so many young adults kind of flounder, and they either mature into it, you know, or they reach back for a past season and try to hold on. And I'm going to just call it immaturity, like hold on to who you used to be. And it causes so much damage in their development as an adult or as a husband or a wife, to not let go of what's the past and like move forward into a different future, even though it's uncomfortable, you know?
Right. How do you think, if maybe somebody's listening and they're kind of saying like, that's kind of how I feel. Like, I feel like I'm at this kind of, I think anytime you talk about a midlife crisis, it's like a breaking point. You start to want to buy things that you think will kind of help you navigate the season or whatever you're losing. It's usually you're mourning a death, you know?
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of what it is. So what do you say to that person that's maybe in that place that's kind of like, I feel that, like, I feel like the friendships I've had are really changing, like the natural element of how we would be together and spend time together, it's not happening, you know, anymore. What would you say to that person?
I think so, like the midlife crisis is, Bob Buford wrote about this as moving from success to significance, because a lot of people in their midlife, their kids are graduating, they are financially stable, and they're starting to look at their life and say, okay, I've been successful, but now how do I live? Like, does my life matter? They're starting to count down the years that they have left. And a lot of people get lost in that because maybe they built their life on things that, like, man, is it going to last? You know? And how did my kids turn out? And did I build significance into their lives? And I think the quarter life is the same. It's a transition. You're going from one season to a new one. And so, yeah, like you said, you're going to grieve that. And so number one, have grace for yourself and realize like, okay, and this is like a lesson for me in leadership and in everything of like, okay, I'm here. And in order to like lead the people that I need to lead, I have to get to here. Like the leader has to grow or the leader has to go. Like you have to give yourself grace to become, I think somebody else gave that to me. Do I have a song?
That one's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, that was easy.
Grow and go. Come on.
Yeah, got it. But so, even in your quarter life, when you're moving into a career and having a family or more responsibility, giving yourself grace, grieving what you're losing, but then really setting out a vision to say, what do I want to accomplish in this next season? Like, who do I want to become? And fixing your gaze, not on past glory, but on future possibility. And I think that helps people. I had a counselor tell me, Josh, you might get to your midlife crisis early because you started leadership so young. And he's like, so you need to start to navigate now. What does significance look like for you? Or success is going to get old, and you're going to be asking yourself that question. And so giving yourself grace to start to look forward even before you're ready,
Right. And speaking of that, you just mentioned how your leadership journey started younger. We kind of alluded to it, but you went to Bismarck, you were the young adults pastor, living life alongside of so many people. And then you kind of were sprung into a high profile, high pressure leadership situation. And I'm pretty sure you were just at the point of marrying Janae.
Totally.
So like, what was that experience like? And what were you feeling, in that place?
Yeah. So at 28, we stepped into leading a church of, I don't know, like 1,800 people and probably 20 staff. And so from where I had been, a young adult ministry of 180 people with one assistant, like you can just see the chasm, that we had to cross. And not to mention in that same year, so it was 2014, my pastor at that time was like a spiritual father. Like so much of what he imparted into my life is why like I've gone the places I've gone today. And so the loss of that, of him moving away and realizing he was leaving, two other pastors that I worked with really closely both left that year. Another pastor that was, I think he was 61. He was a huge champion of me, passed away that year. Janae graduated PT school actually the same day he passed away. We got married 2 weeks later, after my pastor left earlier that month. And then 3 months after that, or 4 months, our board approached us and said, hey, would you like to lead the church? And we literally, I'll never forget the scene of Janae sitting on the end of our bed and just kind of putting her face.
This is like the first 2 months of it being your bed.
Yes, right. But kind of saying, this is marital suicide. Like to step into this right now when we're trying to figure out marriage. And it's in that moment that I learned that Janae's a verbal processor and I'm an internal processor, because I was like, oh, I guess we're not doing this.
Right.
And 2 days later, and then she goes, no, of course we're doing it. I was just processing. I was like, who have I married?
The thing you said and this is very different.
Very different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, that December we started, so it was just, that year was crazy. It was just crazy. But
what was some of the pressure points in that early experience? Like what were the conversations when their heads were on the pillow at night, and just navigating? I think anybody that gets married also is adjusting to that, new lifestyle as well.
I mean, we have a lot of conversations we laugh about,
Really?
I mean, from a married perspective, I remember it was like, it couldn't have been 3 weeks into marriage. And I was like, Janae, I love you, but I need my own blanket. I don't know if anybody else has been there, but I was like, we're not like cuddly people. Like we go to our side of the bed and fall asleep. And there was this wind tunnel down the middle, no, and I'm like a fetal position, wrap me up tight, and I will sleep well. And
you look like a fetal position. I'm
totally a fetal position. Whatever. I'm feeling insecure. I realized that crossed my arms.
Nobody's ever set up a fetal type wrap me up type of guy before.
That's me. Let's just embrace it. I know you sleep that way too. But I also remember being a few months into marriage and going through like a quarter life crisis. Like I had hung out with all my bros in our house that we lived in. Janae moved from Grand Forks, left her friends and family behind. I was really all she had to cling to, and one other really good friend. And I was the first one out of my house to like move out and get married. And they were all still back at the house hanging out, and I'm like,
Josh.
I'm navigating marriage. And And so I remember writing a blog that was kind of like, marriage is life and death. Like there's so much life and excitement and discipleship that comes from marriage, but it's a dying of yourself too, because you're letting go of who you used to be to become one, you know? And there's still autonomy in marriage and things like that, and you shouldn't lose yourself in it. But I remember like navigating that transition. So one night I asked Janae, and I was just struggling with that transition. I said, Janae, how's marriage going for you? You know? And she gave me this answer about everything she was thinking. She goes, and if she tells the story, she says, so I asked him, I was like, how's marriage going for you? And she goes, and there was this long silence. And she's like, okay, we need to talk. And we sat up in bed and talked about it. But I just remember real vulnerability of like, this is a transition, you know, in our lives. In and we weren't just navigating marriage. We were also trying to hold the church together and figure that out.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's maybe something that people don't always think about is like when a church transitions, it's not just the pastor transitioning, it's the people transitioning too. It's adjusting to the leadership, but also to, you know, the expectations of the pastoral team and just the way that they communicate, the way that they do or don't take certain meetings that maybe previous pastors were accustomed to taking, or conversations, input that they had at one point. And so I think there's just so much of that, you know, that converges. And, you know, did that weight ever get to the point of you guys ever like, I mean, it's just me and you here.
Yeah.
But
nobody else.
You know, nobody else. But ever feeling like, I don't know if we can do all of this, like out of these few things, I think something has to give. Have you ever had those conversations?
I think we're having that conversation right now. Like, how much can we actually do, you know, and really prioritizing our lives and just saying, what are the most important things? And are those things getting prioritized, you know?
Yeah.
So we had an opportunity a few months ago, somebody presented to us, and right away, Janae goes, no, sorry. I was like, can we talk about it? But it was very obvious, like, no, we can't take anymore, you know, like, and especially there's just certain seasons of your life where you have a ton of capacity and time, you know, and there's other seasons of life where it's like, no, I have other responsibilities that I have to be true to before I can go do, you know, X, Y, Z, all these other things. And in transition, when we go through them, like, there's a few phases, right? Because when you first go in, and maybe a lot of this is my personality, but I think it's true for everybody to some degree, that when you go through a transition, a lot of us, our first reaction is like, I'm going to rally my strength and get through this, you know, like I'm going to make this happen. And then it's like your will gets broken, you know, because it goes on longer than you thought, or it was harder than you thought.
Yeah.
And this is the same with loss, you know, transition. When one season ends, like, you're going to get through it. There's momentum and excitement maybe for what's next, but then reality comes of like, okay, this is a different normal, and I have to accept that. And often after that, I think there's like a valley of like, either did I make the right decision, or is it always going to be this way, before we actually come to a place of like, okay, I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
And so even when I talk to young adults that have like moved away out of community and they're freaking out their first couple weeks, like, I don't have community, I'm lonely, I don't know what to do. I'm like, there's going to be a roller coaster, and you just got to do the intentional things. You got to find good people. You got to be consistent with the Lord and with those people. And then eventually you're going to ride it out into a good place again. You know?
Yeah. When I was going to say, I feel like, you know, we're talking about your story and your journey, but I think people can kind of find their entry point, you know, whether it's, you know, I've been talking to people that are taking on high pressure roles earlier in their career than maybe before, just because of how the world is changing, and, you know, skill and, you know, young mind, especially in like the entrepreneurial or business or marketing side. It's, you know, we're being relied on more than maybe 20 years ago in the industry. And, you know, but even just in family and transitioning kids. And I think it's those transition points that I feel like, at least in our case, stirs up all sorts of emotions. It stirs up, you know, all sorts of decisions that are being made. And when you're attuned with your, you know, your emotions and just with God, which is sometimes the first thing to go, you start to realize like, this isn't the reason that there's unhealth, but there's unhealth. And, you know, it's because this decision is should be a easy decision that I'm sitting on for 2 weeks, and it's because there's something else that I'm mourning or losing, you know?
Right.
And I think that can be the difficult thing in young, or one of the difficult things in young adulthood, is the amount of transition and our ability or inability to cope with it. And
Yeah.
so what are some things that you've done in coping with the transition points and just the changes that you've experienced throughout your young adult journey?
Yeah, there's some things you just can't do alone, you know, that you have to have. I was just talking to somebody about this today. You have to let other people guide you through it, you know? And so starting to lead a church from a young age, the first thing Janae and I did was discover spiritual fathers and mothers that could speak into our lives and help us make that transition, you know? Same with marriage, same with parenting, same with starting a new job, like allowing people to guide you through that transition and depending on them. I know I've told you about, so we were running super hard when we started leading the church. Like, as I said, a lot of the pastors were gone. It was like me, the worship pastor, and a part-time youth pastor that were left in a pretty large church.
Yeah.
And my assistant and I became like the missions committee, the weekend planning committee. Like, we were doing all these things, and the church was growing, and we're trying to keep up. We were HR, trying to hire people.
Yeah.
And just, but I said, like, my assistant and me, like, it wasn't just me. It's like allowing people to help you. And so 3 years after that, and for me, it's always, I know like what my tension points are in transition. So I did a life plan at one point, and the coach that I walked through it with said, write down all the major points of your life. I wrote them all down, and then he had me put them on like dots on a line graph.
Yeah.
And every time my satisfaction in life dropped off, it was linked to a major transition where I stepped out of biblical community.
Wow.
Every time, like, that there was a low. Either I moved from Fargo to Dickinson or whatever it was.
Yep.
And so I realized, like, oh, my satisfaction and happiness is really tied to people, like community, you know, and realizing how much I needed that. And so, but on the flip side, right, your glory or the good is also your suffering and your bad. For me, like, people issues can really throw me off, like, and put me in a bad place. And I had some people issues the first 3 years in leadership that were just hard.
Right.
And I knew I needed to make transitions in those relationships and keep moving the church forward. So I enlisted the help of a counselor, and I said, hey, I don't like how I do conflict. I don't like how I deal with hard conversations. I don't like who I become when I'm put on the spot. And so can you help me learn who I am and how to handle those situations better? So that's a really long answer to say, like, taking people with you and allowing them to help you in the seasons where you're vulnerable or you're in transition. I don't think there's any replacement for that. You know?
That's so good. I just think that idea of being willing to ask for help, just period, you know, is something that I think I wish I would have maybe grasped that idea earlier. I think for me in my leadership journey, I think there's lots of times where obviously you hear the idea of fake it till you make it. Like, I just felt like in order to be viewed as the leader, you know, and viewed as the person and have that authority, I think authority and authenticity, you know, when those get out of balance, it can be challenging, because for me, I found myself a lot and like felt like I was floundering or, you know, just trying to make a decision. But I felt like if I go to this person to ask for help, it might be viewed in this way. And I think that's something that I've just had to like give up, you know, and surrender to the Lord of just, it doesn't matter what this person thinks of me. It doesn't matter if it affects my leadership. Like, it doesn't in the sense of what's given to me or what's taken away from me. Like, I want to be healthy. I want to be whole, and I want to be, you know, rid of sinful things or whatever it is in my life so that I can run the race well, you know. The whole idea of it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, Josh, you know.
Yeah.
You probably said that in a message before. I'm sure you have. We all have.
It feels like a very fast marathon.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get out of the gate fast. You know?
Yeah.
But I remember my brother, I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story. It was when he was pretty young. Like, we're talking elementary school. And he was running like the 400 meter, and we were there supporting him as a family, and he took off out the gates, you know, keeping up and just blitzing, you know, out of the gates. And then it was like halfway, we just saw like the pack just keep going, and then one Fading. Boy fade. And again, this was like when he was 5th grade. And I think, when we realize like the pace that we need to run, and then we have people that can help us keep pace, I think that's been really important for me, is just finding those people that, whether they're alongside of me or a long ways away, that we can have conversations. One of those people has been Kyle Trozen. I don't know if you remember Kyle. Kyle and Tara are just incredible people, and their heart is for pastors, and they're just in like a distant place where for him it's just become a phone call away, where I can just be fully vulnerable, and he's just going to speak life and encourage me and really ask me some of my pain points, and he knows those things. And so it's been really great to have people like him too.
Yeah, I feel like I totally get where you're coming from. And in college, it was like, you need an accountability partner, you need a small group leader. Like there were certain people you needed in your life. And I feel like adulthood, and actually a spiritual father in our lives, taught us about this. Like, and maybe this is good for somebody going through transitions, to develop a growth plan of like, hey, what are the areas in my life I want to grow right now? Give them all a circle. And then say, who is helping me in every one of those circles? So I would say like Pastor Chris Hodges right now is leading me in a prayer life. Does Chris Hodges know me? No. But Chris Hodges has a prayer app that I've been using that is teaching me how to pray differently.
Yeah.
And so he's on my team, whether he knows it or not, And so I've tried to take every area of my life, financial, whatever it is, and just say, who is championing me? Because growth rarely happens apart from accountability or evaluated experience. And so bringing other people along with you is really the only way that we grow,
That's so good. And I was just walking somebody through what I call the dashboards. It's not exclusive to me, but just, family, finances, friendships, for this person's case, school, all these different areas. And I challenged her, give yourself a grade in these, actually take time to journal. And when we talked about it in person, she was like, B, A, and then she came back to me a couple weeks later and was like, it wasn't until I actually started to reflect on all of these areas, and for me, like, I think a lot of my life, I've kind of seen it as a big circle, and then, it's friendship, family, kind of all these things. And what I've kind of, my brain of how I've thought about it is, I used to put kind of Jesus and faith in kind of one of those. And now it's like, okay, Jesus in the middle, and how is it going to impact all of these areas? And then for you to kind of add that next layer of like, and now who is in each of those layers helping you? In my case, discipleship to Jesus is always becoming more like him in all of those areas. So my finances, my friendships, and to have those people that can speak life into that is really crucial.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's something that you are intentionally seeking out, or how much of that's been plopped in your lap and how much of that's just been fighting for it?
I honestly feel like sometimes I would be a blob on the concrete if it wasn't for my wife, who's the most intentional person that I've ever met. Like, Janae came to our young adult ministry on a PT rotation. It's where we met, and she walked right up to like the Next Steps New Here booth and said, I'm new here. How do I get involved? And just like that level of intentionality, knowing I need community, even if I'm only here for 6 weeks. And so she's the one actually in every season that's been like, I'll complain to her about stuff or like issues I don't know how to overcome. And she's like, who are you talking to about that? And I'm like, well, I'm complaining to you, right? But she's always so good about like, you got to call somebody, like you have this person. And I don't know, I didn't do it at first, and I don't know if I was scared of like revealing, I don't know what I'm doing, or it's going to take more work to call and I'm the exception. What they're doing isn't going to work for us. Like I was very dismissive passively about it. But then, somebody taught me this in ministry, that everybody's going to come to a point in your life where you realize that you literally are not enough, and I think the strength of being a young adult or a college student is like, you can rally your strength. You can study for the test all night. Like you have energy and all this stuff to get through what you need to get through. But we come to a point in our lives where life gets too big for us. And we really come to a breaking point and say, I can't do this on my own. And that's actually the most beautiful point you can ever reach at your life. to come to a place. And I, on my prayer app that I do, one of the prayers is always like, ask the Lord for his presence in your life because you need him. And it like makes me cry every time now, because I realize like I am so dependent on God to help me through this season, or to help me through whatever it is I'm navigating, you know? So I feel like Janae has taught me a lot about just being very intentional with people, and then keeping that growth plan moving, and keeping people enlisted, and then just mining good information. I was with Levi Lesko this week. He was at our church, and I said, Levi, how do you do everything you do? He's like, and I love asking that question to people that are like in a season ahead of me. Like, you are a dad, you're a best-selling author, you're traveling around the world speaking, and then you're telling me a story about how you're climbing up the mountain doing something called skinning, and then snowboarding down. And I'm like, when do you make time for all that? You know? And he just spoke into my life about how he learned how to order his day differently than how probably every one of us thinks about it, you know? And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's totally going to serve me in the next season. And just allowing people who are doing it, go to people who are successful or who are doing it or have done it well, and come with a list of questions. You know, whenever I'm with somebody like that, I have either a list of questions on my phone or in my mind of the minute I sit down with them. I'm not going to let there be an awkward silence at all. Like, I'm going to pellet them with questions because I can learn from this person.
That's so good.
Yeah. I heard John Maxwell talk about it. He said, I see all these people and they all want a picture with me. And he's like, what's a picture going to do? Ask me a good question and that will stick with you through life.
That's good.
I still asked him for a picture.
I mean, ask while you're taking the picture.
I have this question. Will you take a picture with me?
Yeah. No, that's really good. And I know it's Maxwell, a lot of people, but Matt Keller, who's a pastor down in Florida, he wrote a book called The Key to Everything. And he talked, and it's about teachability. And that's one of the things is like, think about different people, whether it's in your life or if you were ever to come across them and you were stuck in an elevator with them. Like, what would that 10 seconds, 20 seconds, how do you utilize that? And I think, you know, when we can think about that, but then also translating that into the spiritual place of just prayer, you know, of praying and just saying like, God, I want to be able to learn from anybody, and I want to be ready for any of those, not just like people like Levi, who clearly, you know, I've been following him and his story since he wrote his first book, you know, and just all of that, but just the everyday life. Like, I'm just learning things, even just practical. And I think young adults, this is maybe something we're all at, is the things that I'm really working through right now are both career, you know, transitioning into a new career, doing all these different things, family, you know, 3 kids, all 4 and under, but also like I own a house now, and my next door neighbor, he's helped me lift my, you know, my shelves up to the top of the ceiling to get more room. He's helping me do a bunch of stuff. He was just in my house the other day and he was telling me like, oh, you should probably do this and this. And like, I'm being mentored by him in that area. And it's something that's actually relieving stress from my life, because it's these things that my natural in my house is kind of like, there's a buzz coming. If I just don't listen to it, eventually it'll become a normal part of the rhythm, I won't hear it anymore. And I can get really short with Taylor. Like, if she's like, hey, you know, we need to fix this, I'm like, I don't have time for that. And it's just an area of stress in my life that I need somebody to help me. But just as we kind of come to an end, what would be some like practical things just for somebody to start a growth plan, or just to take a step in that direction?
I think the first thing would be listing out like your roles in your life, you know. Maybe it's what you are at your job, you know, or dad or husband or follower of Jesus, you know, like listing out all those roles and then attaching a goal to each one of like, where am I now and where would I like to be? And then developing a plan of what could get me there, and then not trying to do all of them at once. You know, you can really, I think Craig Rochelle talks about, you can really do one new habit every like 6 weeks, really. And that's why everybody's New Year's resolutions fail, because they try to do like 5.
Right.
And then put them all in a circle, or like with little circles, and then say, who can lead me in this, or who can help me, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a great a great starting point. I just want to add one thing to what you said, which is I think social media has robbed us in two ways. And it can be a tool for the good for sure, but it's made us self-absorbed where we're looking at our own lives compared to other people. And I think we've lost the art of conversation and learning how to ask good questions. Like even just sitting here, I was like, Stephen is so gifted at just asking good questions, and that's a gift. But so many of us, we don't have anything to talk to people about anymore because social media has made us like insular in our thinking and only thinking about ourselves, even sitting face to face with somebody else, wondering more about our lives than theirs, and rediscovering curiosity about other people and asking good questions is a huge gift. And the second thing is the dopamine hits to our brain of getting likes has robbed us of our peace, and created a much more anxious society, than we had before. And so part of your growth plan could be, for my mental health, I'm going to have a Sabbath. I'm going to shut everything off, or I'm going to take a break from social media, or at nights I'm not going to get on, or I'm going to spend time with the Lord in the morning before I turn it on.
That's so good. I feel like even during COVID, for me, it was kind of like I was in this kind of hidden away, obscure season where work got really slow. Life was slow. It was just us and our family. And I just started to really dig into a lot of these different things. And, I did some different practices with my phone where I would limit, I was averaging like 6 hours of screen time, like on the app. And I got down to less than 2 per day. And then I would shut it off for like large periods of time or entire day. And it was like just those little habits kind of jump started like a new hunger in my life and desire for like deeper relationships with Taylor and for our family and other people. And I just think to sit down and give yourself a couple hours to even just take inventory, just kind of, like you said, make the circles, who can I include, but also take that, like your budgeting, Taylor and I, with transition, we've just been meeting with a new financial advisor and, so I had a meeting with him on Friday. So Thursday night and Friday morning, we were just digging in to like the last several months of expenses and just writing them out. And so I would ask Taylor, how much do you think we spent at Starbucks last month? Target, and it wasn't just targeting her, it was my spending too. And just actually getting like that was kind of like, okay, like here's the reality. Like that doesn't mean we're stuck here, but until we know the reality, until like
evaluated experience.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you are here, anytime you're on a map, that's the first thing you need to look at. Like if you just look at the destination, you're like, okay, there it is. You could go in any direction and maybe get lucky and stumble across it. But if you understand on the map where you're at, then you know which direction to head.
Yeah, you might not hit the little arrow button so it shows you where you are.
Yes. Yeah, some maps come with it. You are here.
Yeah.
But in this, it's so important that you just sit down, if you're married, with your spouse or even by yourself first, and just kind of compare notes and say, where are you? And here's where I am. And just start to take the one step, whatever that next step might be, and then to revisit it as often as possible, whether that's a weekly practice on Sunday nights or, I try to, with this season of life, you understand it, like every 3 to 6 months, I love to just have a couple days to myself at my in-laws' lake place or somewhere else where I can just kind of open up the journal, read through things, kind of get my bearings again, and move forward.
Yeah.
I don't think we can't not afford to do that. And I think that's the thing we're in, like, is with these young kids and with roles that produce things on weekends or evenings. Like I almost feel like anytime I do something for myself, I'm robbing them. But really, I have to remind myself, like, me being healthy and, very focused on where I am and stuff is actually making me better in those in those moments,
Well, to go back where we started, you're trying to make a transition in your life, and so you're creating, by striving after something, you're creating space, which can be painful for your family or your schedule, to sit down and kind of reset so that you can go again, and even with the growth plan, that's what we're talking about, is transitioning some things in your life. And there's going to be pain with that. There's going to be something you have to let go of, or else you never grow, And there's two things that make a tree grow: soil, good soil, and pruning. And so pain and the right behaviors, the soil, the culture that the tree is in, that's what's going to cause it to grow. And those are just things we have to embrace if we actually want to move forward.
That's good. I haven't been as nervous when you said there's two things since like science class in school. Like I was looking at a paper. I don't remember what they are.
I'm always like, am I going to remember the second thing after I explain the first thing?
I was preaching one time and I was like talking about being fruitful, and I don't know what the message is about, but then I kept calling what actually grows on a plant. I said that kind of tree, and I can't remember the fruit it was, but I was like, it's just like this tree. And then somebody's like, just so you know, that's not a tree.
Yeah.
I'm like, my horticulture skills take me to the grave.
I would have been perfectly fine not knowing that.
I could have just preached that over and over and over again all across the world, and they would have just kept inviting me because I'm so stupid.
It would have been fine.
Yeah. Well, Josh, this has been so much fun. I feel like, we could, when we talked about this conversation, we were like, hey, we could go here. I think it just sets up the conversation for another, episode, or maybe we just need to do something together. Just, just me and you. But no, one last question.
Mm-hmm. It would be called Going Somewhere Highly Unlikely.
Hey, that's pretty good.
An idea is born.
It has been born.
A kind of cheesy one. But
it's a little long.
It is a little long.
We'll work on it.
Gush. No, that's not right. It'd be Gashu.
Gashu.
We got to move on.
Hey, it's okay. I won't edit that out either.
Yeah.
But, if you were to go back in time, pick a point in your early young adult or your young adult journey, and if you could give that to Josh one piece of advice, what would it be and why?
Oh man, so I am kind of driven as a person, and somebody had taught me, in your 20s, you're really like discovering who you are. In your 30s, you're honing it in, and like in your 40s, 50s, you really get to own it. And I feel like in college I gave myself the grace to really discover, like who am I really? And I'm not talking about like what's your career. I'm talking about like my gifts, my personality, spiritual gifts, talents. What do they all come together to accomplish for God's kingdom in my life?
Yeah.
And I wish I would have given myself more grace. And part of it was just how life unfolded, and God makes up the difference in our weakness, but just more grace to discover and to try things and figure it out. And then, honing before it's like don't rush to write the book. Don't rush to put away all your wealth. Don't rush. You should be smart about it, but give yourself the grace to walk through those seasons. And I wish I would have just given myself the grace to slow down and walk through those seasons rather than pushing. And I think I've just learned now, if anything good is going to come into my life, I've never knocked on a door for my career, for opportunities. I've never banged on it and said, let me in, let me try. God has always opened the door. And it's not about pushing or being driven. It's about, God, here's my life. I'm serving you. Now I've given this to you. Will you just bless what I touch so that I can be a blessing to other people? And just living out of that,
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. I know you spoke at our church this morning at Northview, and your voice is just, I know it's been helpful for Pastor Dave and just for our church, and so I just appreciate you, but your friendship and you, Janae, your family, just love you guys so much, and I just appreciate you for taking some time to hang out with us. Going Somewhere podcast people.
Yeah,
we're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together. That's kind of like the cheesy tagline. I rarely ever say it, but
you got it in there. Hey, I love you. I'm proud of you. I remember the baseball loving kid that I met at that youth convention, and
places,
the plans for your life and just your obedience, your going where God calls you to go, being willing to pivot when he asks you to pivot. And I think I told you this in the text, but I just believe, and I preached this back at my church on a recording this weekend, but when olives are crushed, oil comes out of the bottom. And when there's crushing or like a change in our lives, we can either be broken by it and crushed, or we can get new oil. and a new thing for a new season. And I just see you doing that, you know, right now. And I think you're just at the beginnings of great new things that God's going to do in your life. So I'm excited that the cliche line is true, that the best is yet to come for you.
Best is yet to
Come on.
Hey, thank you so much. Love you.
Love you too.
Listen again next time when I have another guest in this chair or on a computer screen near you. Love you guys.